Welcome to the celebration of the 243rd United States Marine Corps birthday, hosted by the Marines Memorial Association and Foundation. We begin this evening's celebration with a musical tribute by the Brass Quintet of the 1st Marine Division, Band, Camp Pendleton, California. Every year, the Commandant of the Marine Corps provides each command a message for all Marines, past and present. Ladies and gentlemen, a message from the 37th Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Robert B. Neller.
Think back to before you came into the Marine Corps. At some point, you saw or met a Marine, and you thought, do I have what it takes to be one of them? So you made the commitment, you accepted the challenge. In your first act of demonstrating faithfulness, you swore to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. As a Marine, for hours upon hours, focused on one thing, you worked hard, fighting, training, sweating, refining that warrior spirit, earning that EGA.
You know what it means for me to give you that,
You're here now, right? Yes, sir. It's for you, understand? Yes, sir. The work only begins now. Got it? Yes, sir. Understand?
Ensuring you'd be worthy of the title Marine. You joined your first unit. You worked at learning your MOS. You listened to the NCOs and other leaders as they led and shaped you. You received your first promotion and a second promotion. And with each promotion, your responsibilities increased, just like others' expectations of you. You were proud, but you knew that nothing was getting easier. Life, the mission, all of it. And then you deployed, and you were focused. The mission was clear. The challenges were there. You were there with your friends and the rest of the unit. The sorrow, the joy, all of it became real. Not just lessons and stories from NCOs. And then you came home. And you prepared to do it again and again. And maybe there were more promotions. Maybe you fell in love and started a family. And now the new Marines are looking to you for advice and leadership. And like those before you, you taught, you trained them, you led them well. And then seemingly overnight, there you are. And now this is you. Still a Marine, continuing to demonstrate your faithfulness to our Corps, our country, and to each other. You are Semper Fidelis, Marine. Every Marine needs to see these wheat fields. On the 6th of June, 1918, Marines crossed the line of departure and attacked the west side of Belleau Wood, charging through this field through heavy enemy fire. They paid a high price for their bravery. But they fought and they won because they were Marines. Because they were led by people like Gunnery Sergeant Fred Stockham, a man who gave his gas mask to a fellow Marine, an action of self-sacrifice, which earned him the Medal of Honor. 1918 is a proud year for our Marine Corps. While Marines led the way in Belleau Wood, new Marines were stepping up at home. The first female Marines joined our ranks, bolstering our force during a time of war. For 100 years, they have served faithfully, helping win battles around the globe, including recent conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. 100 years ago, they answered the nation's call, and they have been serving faithfully ever since. This dedication to victory is something we can trace back to every conflict in our history. It defines us. It defines warriors like Gunnery Sergeant John Canley, a leader who led from the front. With his Marines outnumbered, he pushed forward during the Battle of Way City, standing tall during firefights and throwing himself into harm's way to keep his fellow Marines safe.
The only thing I was doing was just responding. The Marines, the young Marines, it shows them that it's not do as I say, it's do as I do. And just being that close with them brings motivation to them.
During firefights, when we'd be all hugging Mother Earth, he'd be standing up directing us. And I think if you talk to every Alpha Company Marine, we're amazed that he was never shot.
He is individually and uniquely responsible for saving the lives of a lot of good young Marines.
My legacy was about taking care of Marines, because I don't think that there was anyone that was more demanding than Gunnery Sergeant Canley.
The President of the United States, in the name of Congress, takes pleasure in awarding the Congressional Medal of Honor to Gunnery Sergeant John L. Canley, United States Marine Corps.
For 243 years, Marines have fought and won whenever and wherever our nation calls. In the harshest conditions, over the most brutal terrain, and against the most formidable enemies, Marines defend the ideals of freedom with grit and tenacity.
Though battlefields will change and capabilities evolve, history tells us that true victory comes from the individual Marine. A Marine with steeled resolve, the drive to overcome any obstacle, and the warrior spirit to fight and win against all odds.
That is how battles are won. It takes a steadfast faithfulness, semper fidelis, to corps, country, and each other.
Happy birthday, Marines.
And semper fidelis.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant General Jan Hewley, the President and CEO of the Marines Memorial Association. It's my honor and privilege to celebrate this 243rd birthday of our United States Marine Corps with all of you. We welcome you to this living memorial. We're honored tonight to have all of you here for this timeless tradition. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the invocation led by Captain John Swanson, United States Navy Chaplain Corps, the Pacific Area U.S. Coast Guard Chaplain. Chaplain Swanson.
Good evening. In the 144th Psalm, we read, "Praise be to the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war, my fingers for battle. He is my loving God and my fortress, my stronghold and my deliverer, my shield, in whom I take refuge." Let us pray. Almighty God, you are Emmanuel, God with us. When the storm clouds of war gather and life's seas rage and foam, you grant to those who call upon your name the courage, strength, and will to stand fast and persevere. When beset by hardship, grief, illness, disappointment, pain, and loss, you are with us. Even in the face of evil, you are with us. During such times, we are reminded that you are our fortress, our stronghold, our deliverer and shield, in whom we can take refuge. In the midst of life's darkest storms, you shine brightly and inspire courage and hope. Therefore, we give thanks in all circumstances, knowing that your love and faithfulness are everlasting to everlasting. This evening, on the occasion of the 243rd anniversary of the United States Marine Corps, we celebrate and give thanks for the Corps and for all who have answered the call to duty, who have committed their lives to the preservation of liberty. Since the Corps' inception, men and women of character, courage, and faith have answered the call to duty and stepped into the breach to defend this great nation from all enemies. Their selfless service and courageous sacrifice has secured freedom as our most precious legacy. We give thanks for the Corps' legacy of sacrifice and service and pray for all Marines, past and present, especially those serving in harm's way, who are unable to be with us this evening. Guard them, bless them, and protect them and their loved ones from all evil and harm. Now, guard our hearts and minds as we face the challenges of each day, and grant us courage, faith, and wisdom during these uncertain times. May this evening strengthen our friendship and our love for the Corps, that we may continue to serve as men and women of character, courage, and faith, who stand ready and always faithful. In your holy and almighty name we pray. Amen.
Before we continue with our program, and on behalf of the Board of Directors, I got to tell you, it's really my honor to be able to recognize a few people that are with us tonight. Now, I mean, I know many of you, and I'm not going to get everybody, but there are just a few that I have to go out of my way to make sure that I've honored. First off, one of our long-term board members of both the Marines Memorial Association and the Foundation, Vice Admiral Jody Breckenridge, United States Coast Guard, retired. Where are you, Jody? Thank you. This lady dedicated a lot of years of service to the Coast Guard and our nation, but she continues. She's on probably about 15 different boards and nonprofit organizations, and she's just like the Energizer Bunny. She just keeps right on going, so thank you for what you do for us. I wouldn't be here tonight if it weren't for Major General Mike Myatt, my predecessor. Sir, where are you? Mike brought with him another Mike, TV star, Mike Rowe. Where are you? You got it. He too is a supporter of the club, and make sure you go by and bug him for his autograph and get a picture of him. Thank you. Major General Bertie Don Lynch, where are you, sir? His claim to fame is he used to filch me for a lot of money on the golf course that he actually designed down at Camp Pendleton. So you know that was General Lynch, retired. We've got another board member that I'd just like to point out, a great guy, a real contributor, and a former POW. He lost his F-16 and he left it somewhere in Kuwait or Iraq. Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Tice, where are you, sir? Another POW from the Korean War, Chief Warrant Officer Harry McGowan. Where are you, sir? Right here in the front. Yeah, I got to make sure I got everybody on here, but I'm going to two of the guys that really are still carrying the heavy load. Colonel Stephen White is the CO of the 23rd Marine Regiment. He's got a job. He's got to be twice the citizen soldier here because he's got the reserves who he's deploying still today, but he's with us tonight. And his wife. Steve, congratulations. Where are you? And the guy that's probably got the hardest job in the Marine Corps, and I know because I used to come under my purview, think about trying to recruit United States Marines now in the city of San Francisco, in this area. Major Clint Hall, where are you? I bet you if you give him any referrals, he'll probably give you a T-shirt or a hat or something. He's got a tough job, so thank all of you for coming. And oh, by the way, our guest of honor tonight, the Secretary of the entire United States Navy and Marine Corps, Richard V. Spencer, the Honorable. Thank you, sir. Welcome, Mr. Secretary. We really look forward to your insightful speech tonight, and we're prepared to have you answer some of our questions. So thank you very much. Happy birthday, Marines.
Sound, attention! Sound, adjutants, cool!
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the entrance of the official party. The chairman of the Marines Memorial and former Marine flight officer in Vietnam, Mr. Rick Hartnack. Our guest of honor, the Honorable Richard V. Spencer, Secretary of the Navy and former Marine aviator. Please remain standing for the March On of the Colors and the National Anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. On November 1st, 1921, John A. Lejeune, 13th Commandant of the Marine Corps, directed that a reminder of the honorable service of the Corps be published by every command to all Marines throughout the globe on the birthday of the Corps. Since that day, the men and women of our Corps have continued to distinguish themselves on many battlefields and foreign shores, in war and peace. On this birthday of the Corps, therefore, in recognition of the will of the 13th Commandant, a reminder of the Corps' honorable service is published as follows.
On November 10, 1775, a Corps of Marines was created by a resolution of the Continental Congress. Since that date, many thousand men have borne the name Marine. In memory of them, it is fitting that we, who are Marines, should commemorate the birthday of our Corps by calling to mind the glory of its long and illustrious history. The record of our Corps is one which will bear comparison with that of the most famous military organizations in the world's history. During 90 of the first 146 years of its existence, the Marine Corps has been in action against the nation's foes. From the Battle of Trenton to the Argonne, Marines have won foremost honors in war, and in the long eras of tranquility at home, generation after generation of Marines have grown gray in war in both hemispheres and in every corner of the seven seas, that our country and its citizens might enjoy peace and security. In every battle and skirmish since the birth of our Corps, Marines have acquitted themselves with the greatest distinction, winning new honors on each occasion, until the term Marine has come to signify all that is highest in military efficiency and soldierly virtue. This high name of distinction and soldierly repute, we, who are Marines today, have received from those who have preceded us in the Corps. With it, we also receive from them the eternal spirit which has animated our Corps from generation to generation and has been the distinguishing mark of Marines in every age. So long as the spirit continues to flourish, Marines will be found equal to every emergency in the future as they have been in the past. And the men of our nation will regard us as worthy successors to the long line of illustrious men who have served as soldiers of the sea since the founding of the Corps.
The timeless message of our 13th Commandant has left its mark in the hearts and minds of all Marines, past and present. By deed and act, from Belleau Wood to the Argonne, from Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima, from Incheon to the Korean armistice, from the hard fights in Vietnam to Desert Shield, Desert Storm, to this century's longest wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and in hundreds of other places where Marines have distinguished themselves, Marines have continued to epitomize those qualities which are their legacy. The success which the men and women who have earned the title Marine have achieved in combat, and the faith they have borne in peace will endure forever. The Commandant and our many friends have added their hearty praise and congratulations on this, our 243rd birthday. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the entry of the traditional birthday cake. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, it is customary at Marine Corps birthday celebrations worldwide for Marines to cut a traditional cake in celebration of the birth of our illustrious Corps. A sword is used to cut the cake as a reminder that we are a band of warriors. committed to carrying the sword so that our nation may live in peace. The first piece of cake is being presented to our guest of honor, the Honorable Richard V. Spencer, Secretary of the Navy. The next piece of cake is given to the oldest Marine, who passes it to the youngest Marine present, symbolizing the experience and youthful spirit that are the hallmarks of our Corps. The third piece of cake is presented to the oldest Marine present, Major George W. Parker, United States Marine Corps, retired. He was born on 19 October 1918 in Corning, California. He was commissioned in the Marine Corps on 2 February 1942. The passing of the cake from the oldest to the youngest Marine, symbolizing the passing of history and traditions to the next generation. The youngest Marine present is Corporal Rigoberto Gonzalez. He was born on 17 February 1998 in Riverside, California. He enlisted in the Marine Corps on 11 July 2016 and is currently assigned to Headquarters Company, 23rd Marine Regiment. Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of the board of the Marines Memorial Association, Mr. Rick Hartnack.
Good evening. On behalf of our board of directors, our outstanding management staff, and the wonderful employees that work here, I'd like to extend our warmest possible welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us tonight. It's my pleasure to be able to introduce Richard Spencer, the 76th Secretary of the Navy of the United States. He was commissioned a second lieutenant in 1976 and went on to become an H-46 pilot. After serving his country, he embarked on a very successful civilian career and has continued to serve our Corps at a variety of positions. He was on the board of directors of the Marine Heritage Foundation, which maintains and is built and maintains our wonderful museum in Quantico, Virginia. He served on the board of the Defense Business Board, and he served the Chief of Naval Operations on the executive panel. It's my pleasure to introduce Richard and ask each of you to join me in welcoming him.
Thank you, Rick. Greatly appreciated, and a very humble thank you to Jan Hewley, General Hewley, for what he has done here for this organization and this establishment, and to the board of directors. Having served on the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation and worked along that side to build our hall for the Marine Corps. I know the toil and effort that goes into keeping establishments such as this running. So a hearty thank you to the board and all the people involved. It was June 8th of 1981 that I packed up my 1968 Volkswagen Bug and headed out the gates of Marine Corps Air Station Tustin, got on Pacific Coast Highway 101 and headed north up here to San Francisco to spend my one and only night in this fine establishment, because it almost broke me. That's how little money I had at the time. And I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that a lot has happened between then and now, but to be standing here in front of you as the Secretary of the Navy, I'm humbled and honored to be in this position. Polly and I jokingly say I call myself the accidental secretary. It was never a drive per se, but when Secretary Mattis called and said, would you fill the position, after I checked in with Polly and got the okay, the answer was swift and easy. But what I thought I'd do tonight, and if the microphone's working, because I'd much rather, is it working? Yeah, it is. I'd much rather be walking around. What I'd like to do tonight is tell you all what's going on with your Marine Corps, your Navy Marine Corps team. And if any of you have heard me speak before, that is how I refer to it, the Navy Marine Corps team, our forward deployed forces, our naval forces. We are entwined with the Navy. It's critical at this point for the security of our country, the mission of the Marine Corps and the mission of the Navy to be all aligned. You all might know that last year, Secretary Mattis came out with the National Defense Strategy, a clear-cut, three-point strategy on how we're going to face the world and keep this country safe and watch out for our resources and our interests around the globe. We have aligned ourselves to that strategy, and we funded that strategy. But let me give you a little precursor, because many of you have lived what I'm talking about. People ask me, they say, Mr. Secretary, what was the most shocking thing that you found when you arrived as Secretary? And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who don't know, I spent 10 years on the Defense Business Board, which was a board that consults the Secretaries of Defense on various issues they may have to see if there's civilian or private practice solutions that might help. So I kind of kept my toe in the water, and as General Neller says, you hung around the hoop and you paid attention. And I thought I knew what was going on in our Navy and Marine Corps. I had no idea as to the breadth and depth of the readiness hole that we had gotten ourselves into. And without looking back, and I don't like to point fingers, but I'll tell you one thing right now that everyone should pay attention to. The Title X civilian authorities that oversee our militaries are the circuit breakers that should prevent this. Your uniformed services, your Marine Corps, your Navy, your Air Force, your Army, are like thoroughbred horses. When put into the gate and that gate opens, they will run, and they will run their damnedest. And they will run it every time they're put in the gate and every time the gate is open. It's up to a responsible source to make sure that you don't run the feet off of them. And that's basically what happened. We'd flown the wings off the planes, we'd sailed the bottoms off the ship, and we shot the cannons, the rifling out of the cannons. The good news, between the monies we got in 17, the 18-19 budget, we have filled the gap. We have laid the foundation, ladies and gentlemen, to go forward. Your Marine Corps is properly resourced now on a base basis to go forward. What do I mean when I say base basis? The hole has been filled. We have a lot of room to go, and we will get there. The 20 numbers, we'll see what happens. 19 is being spent as we speak. But we're seeing the resources that we're seeing being put back into the services to get them where they need to be are happening. For those of you who are involved in the process, you know that this time of year is PBR. This is when we carve up assets and make trades, and this is usually when there's some pretty big haggling going on. There's backstabbing, there's back trading, there's all the nastiness you hear about in Washington. And here's what's fascinating that's going on right now inside your Pentagon. You have 3 service secretaries that meet regularly every 2 weeks without staff, which drives the building absolutely crazy. But we are doing more as 3 service secretaries, according to alumni who watch the building, as any service secretaries in the prior 18 years. And we're doing this on a collective basis because we realize that resources are not ending, not limitless. They are constrained, and we all together have to make sure that we're going to support the NDS in a coordinated manner. This is the kind of attitude that's going on inside the Pentagon right now. I could go on and tell you about conversations we're having about whether the carrier, the aircraft carrier in the United States Navy, has a life. We're going to get to that answer probably in the next week. But the fact that we're having this conversation now, checking the emotions outside the door, bringing in data-oriented arguments to support the strategies and the deployments and the needs of these assets are critical. Marine Corps Tactical Air. That agreement was laid down 12 years ago. I was told that actually some fisticuffs would happen when that MOU was brought out and discussed. We've had a 3-week discussion on it now. It's the most impressive conclusion. You'll see it soon. It's a great deal for the Marine Corps. It's a great deal for the Navy going forward. These are the kind of data-centric, non-emotional discussions we're having. And it's all for the betterment of the resources that are being put forward. The 3 principles that I came forward when I was secretary were people, capabilities, and process. And I truly mean it when we focus on people. We can have the best equipment, the best aircraft, the best tanks, the best handguns. Without people, they don't mean a thing. Major Hall, you deserve great credit. Because one of the things, we have 2 levers in the Marine Corps, the recruiting lever and the retention lever. And these are critical going forward in the next couple of years, because we must keep this Marine Corps at the ultimate stage of readiness with the ultimate character of people. We are making our numbers in recruiting. The headwinds are starting to increase as the economy increases and gets healthier. It's harder to fish from the same pool because the Air Force and the Army are also fishing from that same pool. We will make our numbers because we have a story to tell. Retention. We're going to make sure, and we've already set the wheels in process with the Commandant, that your Marines will always be challenged, not only physically, but they'll be challenged mentally and be given a path and the tools to support their career and how they're going to go forward in the Marine Corps. And I don't mean that means everybody stays 20 years. It's a high turnover organization, you all know that, but we want to make sure that everybody, while they're in, has the challenge, contributes to the cause, and then possibly they take an exit out of the Marine Corps. We now have the ability to bring them back in again. The latest NDAA, the 19 NDAA, allows us to adjust DOPMA, which was the old upper-out system that we have. We're getting more flexibility to keep quality people in our Corps. I want to close out and answer some questions because I have them here on my podium, and I'll get to them in a second, because it's better for me to hear questions from you than for me to just sit here and bloviate. But I want to tell you and close out with one thing that you all should know before I get to the questions. Last year was a tough year across both the Navy and the Marine Corps. Resources have been put back in place, as I've just told you. We've funded all accounts to either their maximum execution capability or their maximum industrial capability across the board, whether it be ships, whether it be aircraft, whether it be AAVs, whatever the case may be. We're in a good place. Your United States Marine Corps is much more ready tonight to bring the fight than it was a year ago, and rest assured, you shouldn't have to worry at all about that fact. So with that, I asked General Hewley if I could take him from the crowd, and he said, no, you know what we'll do? We'll actually write him down. I usually like to take him from the crowd and see where the fastballs come from, but here we go. Please describe the importance and the impact of the F-35B combat strike off the amphibs into Afghanistan. Its importance to the fifth-generation amphib mission. That's a great question. The F-35 is a very interesting beast. It is a game changer in the battlefield. Without a doubt, it's a game changer. It has a cost to it that is eye-watering. And the sustainment costs also are eye-watering. When I came on as secretary, having a business background was very interesting. We sat all our primes down and said, we have to clear the deck. There was some acrimonious feelings due to the fact that they'd been ground down for 10 years and CRs, continuing resolutions, had really impacted them. And I said, we have to work as partners. And what I mean by partners is you have to understand what I need, but just as importantly, I have to be a responsible client. I have to know what you need. Doesn't mean the Treasury doors are open, but I have to understand what you need. We've had that discussion with a lot of our suppliers, and we're making great progress. We still got some woodshed meetings we have to do. The F-35, we're really going to have to bang this thing down to get it into a cost control mode that benefits us and that we can afford over the long run. Amphibs. Marine Air is critical, and the Naval-Marine Air relationship is critical. Now that we have vertical flight aircraft off the amphibs, we have an addition to the actual aircraft carrier, the traditional aircraft carrier. Amphibs are a critical component of the United States Marine Corps, and it is a focus of both the Commandant and I to increase our investment in amphibs. We got an extra ship in 18, we got another one in 19. We have to keep the pressure on and make sure we have that vessel available to us, because the new National Defense Strategy, ladies and gentlemen, is about 60% Pacific looking. China is our pacing competitor. That is where we're focused on. And as we look at the Pacific theater, the tyranny of distance, it's a poster child for it. It's a naval Marine Corps battle, Air Force coming in overhead, but those are the primary two forces that will be out there first. That is why the amphib will be a critical component of that team. Does the aircraft carrier have a future in the Navy? Can we get the money for the aircraft carrier if it isn't? No. Like I said, we're having some fascinating discussions on this topic, which, and I know I have some of my Navy brethren in the crowd here. That is the Holy Grail conversation. But we have laid out, the CNO has worked hard and with his staff to really lay out what's called the way forward with the new strategy, and it's called the way the Navy fights. And the carrier is a critical component of that. When you hear critics of the carrier say that it is just simply a huge target to be hit, there is more behind that in a defense statement than not. And there's a great article in Proceedings, if any of you really want to get into the techniques behind it and how we fight the carrier. But the carrier will be around for the foreseeable future. And what I mean by foreseeable future is it into the 2030s. You hear many times about this 355-ship Navy, which I completely subscribe to, considering its law. But it is simply one of the components of the portfolio that we have to manage for the Department of the Navy and Marine Corps. There are multiple weapon systems beside the ships. Please do not get myopically focused on how we're approaching 355 ships. Also should be asking how we're getting aircraft numbers readiness back up in the air. What are we doing with vertical lift? What are we doing with AAVs? What are we doing with troop transports? There is a whole portfolio that we're trying to manage, and it seems to get drowned out every now and then with 355 ships. Know that we are focusing on every aspect of what our Marines need to bring the fight to the enemy. Concerning the organization of the I Love Me wall, what is your model of the H-46 and your squadron play inside my office from all frog drivers? Well, that's one of those questions you kind of pause on, so I get to do something that's really neat. I get to turn around and say, I would like everyone from Helicopter Marine Medium Squadron 161 who's ever served in it to please stand right now. My fellow squadron mates. Please know that I received a wood flag, a wood American flag from another friend who's in the sniper unit, but it's all wood carved, burnished. It's a beautiful flag, but in the center of it is an HMM 161 logo. So you ask where it is. It's sitting right behind my desk, and on my stand-up desk, I will add that there is a 46 model from the museum that is on loan to me. Sir, I got to make sure I got the name right here. Sir, could you please ask Colonel Olinger to marry me? No signature. This could change the world. Okay, I hope that's changing the world right now. Last one. I have noted that enlisting housing at Camp Pendleton, construction has ceased. With California housing prices, will it resume? Our enlisted families have a quality of life housing issue. For those of you who obviously read the paper out here, and I'll tell you what's fascinating about being Secretary of the Navy. One day you're dealing with whether the aircraft carrier has a future. The next day you're dealing on the fact that we might have a dairy farm, and then you're dealing with housing. It's a fascinating job in that regard. You never get bored. In fact, I find myself sometimes saying, we own that, we do that. But housing is a real issue, and I know there's been some stories out here, specifically in Camp Pendleton, about our private partner relationship down there. It is a key important fact to us, and we are keeping an eye on it. When I say us, the Commandant, myself, and the Sergeant Major. It is critical that we have quality housing for all our Marines, and we're working on that. That story down there, I ask you all to dig in a little deeper and ask some more questions. We have plaintiff lawyers that are trolling down there, actually asking Marines if they'd like to make a quick buck, because if you do some things to your unit, we'll photograph them and run a story on it, and you can get a claim. We just discovered that last week. That's tangential. The fact of the matter is we have to make sure the housing is quality, and that is front and center, I can guarantee you. So I'm going to close out now, because I'm in the way between you and a bar. But I want to tell you, no matter what you're hearing about various stories that arc out about our readiness, it is key, paramount for us to increase where it is. It's at a good place now. It needs to be in a better place. We're getting there. There's always room for improvement. And I'll also tell you, in light of our conversations about the Navy Marine Corps team, having hung around the hoop for 10 years, I've watched the Marine Corps and the Navy and the relationship that's there. And I'll leave you on another great note. Between General Neller and Admiral Richardson, the relationship between the Navy and the Marine Corps is an all-time high, both in funding. It really is. It is fantastic. Strategically, tactically, funding, resource allocation, the Navy Marine Corps team couldn't be tighter than it is right now. And every Marine and every sailor and Marine in here ought to be tremendously proud of that, because we have two great leaders. They will be shifting up this summer, but I'll tell you what, we have a bench that'll make your eyes water. And it's going to be great to work with the next crew. So what I want to say is thank you. Happy birthday, Marines. Semper Fi.
Thanks so much, Mr. Secretary, for spending time and sharing your comments with us. We have an appropriately priced, it's actually the finest token of our appreciation in its price class. We have a little, should show you guys, we have a little commemorative plaque, but it has the copy of the original Iwo Jima memorial stamp.
Wow.
So.
Actually, Rick, thank you very much. Fantastic. Back when you could get something for 3 cents.
Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, folks.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the retiring of the colors and the playing of Anchors Aweigh in the Marines' hymn. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. The President and CEO of the Marines Memorial Association and Foundation, Lieutenant General Jan Hewley.
Thank you. Thank you. As this ceremony is coming to a close, and Thanksgiving's coming up, I figure we ought to be a little bit thankful, but I'm thankful today for tonight's performance by a lot of people. First off, the Secretary of the Navy and Marine Corps. How about that? A round of applause for him. I got to tell you, he followed the script I wrote for him to the T. And it was tough teaching two Air Wing Marines how to get out there together like that. It was, you know, we rehearsed that a lot. So, the 1st Marine Division Quintet, brass quintet, please. Now, my beer math tells me quintet means 5, but there's 7 of them. So that's the brass quintet augmented by the drum section. So we had 2 more out there. Do you know how hard the 23rd Marines and their ceremonial detail had to work to put this together? Now, they've been doing this for weeks because they performed another one, but please, a round of applause for them. The bagpiper, Eric Lighton. But most of all, as well as the rest of them, the staff has worked, our staff here at the Marines Memorial Association has worked very hard. And I call them a staff, but to you, but really, they're more than that. They're a family. They really are. And this is our family. This is our tribe. We're our people. And let me just tell you, they work very, very hard. This is the biggest event of the year for them, so please take some time to thank each and every one of them. But most of all, where's Michael Allen? In the back. I see him back there. They put this together, really a rousing round of applause. And I call it a family, and a family has a home. And this is your home away from home. So thank you very much. I look forward to the pleasure of seeing everybody upstairs. Happy birthday, Marines and Marine supporters. Thank you.